actually rely on the recordings of the classes. I rely on them for myself too. I go back and usually go back and watch the previous class every week just to remind myself where we left off and all that. But last week we didn't have a recording, so anybody that listens in live or recorded, you miss another week. All right. So 7 through 11, we left off in 6. Really, we spent a fair amount of time, if I remember correctly, talking about the I will statements and really God explaining who he is, I am the Lord, and then I will do this. And we talked about those a fair amount last time. What was it, 7 I will statements. And so that was how chapter 6, remember this? I'm reviewing it, but I'm reviewing it for a reason. Chapter 6 ends that way. I will do this, right? And we talked about I will bring you out. I will deliver you. I will redeem you. I will take you from my people. I will be your God, right? We talked about all that. I'll bring you to the land. I'll give it to your possession. So that's how chapter 6 ends with the genealogy and all that. But that's really chapter 6. I think the main point of chapter 6, God's saying, this is what I'm going to do. Okay? And then we're moving into our next lesson, which is 7 through 11. And what does God do? Where does he start? He starts that deliverance, right? He starts that redemption. He starts that bringing out, if you will, taking the people out. We see that starting now in 7 through 11 right now. Doesn't happen immediately. We'll talk about maybe why that is. And there's all these plagues, right, that we all probably enjoy talking about, or, it's a common fun, especially for younger classes and younger kids to study the plagues and what all happen. It's very fascinating. I remember as a young boy, thinking about the frogs and the gnats and just the blood and all those things, just kind of being enthralled with that and wondering how that must have looked like. So that's how we start in 7. So if you recall, I don't want to really get bogged down in too much of the details of the plagues themselves. We can talk about those a little bit. That's fine. I'm not saying I don't want to. I do want to really focus more so on some of the interpretation questions and the application questions I have, and really the big picture of why the 10 plagues, why so many? Why this whole thing? Why did Pharaoh? Why was this heart hardened? Why did all this have to happen like this? And talk about that. Okay. So 7 through 11. I guess for keeping us all on the same page, and I think we're normally I don't like to go through the observation questions in a lot of detail, but I think we actually will go through those for these chapters. Just kind of picking out some of the details of what happens in 7 through 11. And then we can get into the other questions. We can talk about the plagues a little bit too, and go from there. Okay? So let's just do this. We're not going to read it all, but how does chapter 7 start? So again, chapter 6, God says, this is who I am. This is what I am, if you will. This is what I will do. And then how does chapter 7 start?
Giving instructions to Moses and Aaron.
All right, so it starts right. Now we don't know how much time passed here. Was it a day or two? I don't know that. But basically, in chronological order of the chapters, right away in 7. All right, this is what you're going to do. It tells them to go.
This is still to get Pharaoh to let them go for 3 days, right? I mean, that was the original.
Correct. The original
for 3 days.
They're still really trying to get them to. If you look at, let's see, where can we find that? Because it happens a couple of times. I think it's in the later plagues or interactions with Pharaoh, where they're really asking, well, let us go worship for these days. And Pharaoh says, yes, I'll let you go, but then he doesn't. Well, let's see, which one is that? Now we're going to test my memory here. And anybody else that finds that, let us know.
I think first he simply asks, tells him to let the people go.
Yes, but later on.
And he refuses, and then finally Pharaoh grants 3 days.
Yes, that's what I'm looking for, but I'm trying to remember where that is.
So 27 of 9.
Is that
8,
9?
I'm sorry.
8? Okay, I was looking at 9. I guess it was off a little bit. Yeah. Yep, that's what I was thinking of. So if you didn't hear Mike 8, chapter 8, 27, they request, they say we need to, Pharaoh says go ahead and sacrifice, but he says in 25, he says, go sacrifice your God within the land. That's what he says in 25. But Moses says, well, that's not what we're supposed to do. We need to go for 3 days to do that. That's the request that's made in chapter 8. But as far as chapter 7 starts, I guess you could look back to their initial requests. Debbie, I think is what you're referring to, their initial requests. But in chapter 7, if you look at how chapter 7 starts, you shall speak all I command you, and you shall speak to Pharaoh that he let the sons of Israel go out of his land. It does not necessarily say that God's not staying there for 3 days, and so he just says to go out. I think what's God's, based on chapter 6, what's God's plan, though?
Well, first of all, it's interesting. Verse 3 says you'll harden his heart.
Yeah.
Why? That I can multiply my signs. But it's interesting
talking
in verse 4, he says, when Pharaoh does not listen. He doesn't say if Pharaoh does not listen.
Yeah, he knows he's not going to listen.
Right.
Yeah. But based on what we know in chapter 6, we know that God's going to deliver the people, right? He's made this promise to them. So I see it as more of a more than the 3 days. But it is interesting in chapter. I'm glad you brought that up. It is interesting in chapter 8 that Pharaoh said, or Moses says, well, we need to go 3 days journey in the wilderness. That's how God commands us to do. Now, is that Moses saying that as a way to appease the Pharaoh? Like, well, hey, we're going to go for 3 days, kind of thing, knowing that that's going to be their way to escape, maybe, or he's trying to dupe him that way or something. I don't know, but it is interesting.
You asked about the beginning of 7,
Yeah.
how it starts. I was curious about why he said, I will make you as God to Pharaoh.
Yeah, I know. It is very intriguing.
And then in 9, when Pharaoh speaks to you saying, work a miracle, then you shall say to Aaron. So that's, of course, a setup for the miracles that are going to take place.
Of course.
But it looks like that he is sort of playing into the idea that of Pharaoh and the Egyptians and their gods that they have. And so I'm going to make you as a god to Pharaoh, but then he's going to show himself to be
the God. Yes. Yeah. Right.
So
that's a good
that's
point.
what it looks like anyways.
That's it. It is interesting relationship. And then, as we mentioned this class or two ago, that Aaron's going to be like a prophet. The comparison, the analogy that he makes, and saying that he's going to be like a prophet to him. All right, so he says he'll harden Pharaoh's heart, and as Bruce said, but that I may multiply my signs and my wonders, and Pharaoh's not going to listen to you. And so this is really how it starts right away. He doesn't. There's basically just a direct. This is what you're going to do, and this is the start of it. Now, again, based on chapter 6, we can make. I don't know if we even need to make an assumption. We can know that this is God's start of what he said he was going to do. He was going to redeem the people. He was going to take them out. And so this is the start. But as it says in 7, God knows that Pharaoh's not going to listen right away. He knows how this is going to go. And he has a plan of his own as well. All right. So throughout the chapters, the first question, what command did God repeatedly give Pharaoh through Moses? What did he constantly say to him? It really is almost word for word if you look at that. Go ahead, John.
Actually, that's what we all say too. Let my people go.
Yeah, let my people. Yeah, okay. So 7 and verse 16. Let my people go that they may serve me in the wilderness. Behold, you've not. He kind of reminds them. Well, you haven't listened till now, but let my people go. Chapter 8 and 1. Let my people go that they may serve me. But if you refuse, he says it again. Chapter 8 and 20, I think, is the next one. Let my people go, that they may serve me. And then he says again, for if you do not. So there's that constant reminder at the end of that, right? Chapter 9, verse 1, I think, is the next one. Same thing. go and tell, say, let my people go. Then they serve me. 13, same thing, let my people go. I don't think any of these are any different, which I find very interesting. He really repeats the same thing to Pharaoh. It's not as though he's changing the message. It's not as though he's trying to, well, I'll say it to him this way. Maybe he'll finally, it's just the same message. Let my people go, that they may serve me in the wilderness. So how many chances is Pharaoh getting at the same, right? He's getting a lot of chances to listen at with the same message every single time. Let my people go, right? They may serve in the wilderness. He's given a lot of chances, right, Bruce?
Moses and Aaron are going and saying this to Pharaoh. So I'm wondering, God is he looking at Moses and Aaron? How persistent are they going to be?
Yeah. They were so doubtful.
It's almost like a test.
Right.
He's looking at Moses and Aaron in this and seeing, how they're going to perform here.
Yeah. Well, after the first, maybe I shouldn't make these assumptions, maybe, but in chapter 7, maybe after the serpent, Moses and Aaron were like, okay, well, we've seen that before, and but then after the water turning to blood, with Aaron using his staff, I think maybe at that point I would assume Moses and Aaron were kind of pepped up a little bit and encouraged by that. Like, okay, well, God is really gonna make this happen. I don't know if I'm making too many assumptions there, but you could put yourself in their shoes and wonder what it felt like. So what happened each time that he refused his command?
Pharaoh's heart was hardened.
And more than that, and
a new plague. And
another plague, right? So his heart was hardened, and another plague every time this occurs. That was question 2. The second question. This is what happens. All right. So there was 10 plagues. There's actually in this section there's 9, but including I did 7 through 11 intentionally. I wanted to lump 12 and 13 together. But by the way, did I give you guys 12 and 13?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I have that one ready just to remember. All right. So 7 through really 12, we have 10 plagues occurring. 10 different plagues occurring. All right. And which of the plagues did you figure out which ones affected only the Egyptians and which ones were really as clearly written? It might, you could argue maybe that the Egyptians were affected in some of them, but which ones were they not affected by? Anybody want to list them off, or you want to start with one? The flies. Okay, so if you look at chapter 8, I think that's where that is, 22, 23. He actually says, but on that day I will set apart the land of Goshen, where my people are living, so that no swarms of flies will be there. So that one's very directly stated. He's going to set aside Goshen. They're not going to be affected by the flies. What about the next one? We can go in order if you want.
Livestock.
The livestock, Sharon? Okay. So livestock, 4 through, it's in chapter 9. It actually says again, the Lord will make a distinction between the livestock of Israel and the livestock of Egypt, so nothing will die belongs to the sons of Israel. So that one too also stated very clearly, making a distinction. How about the next one?
Hail.
The hail, right? Okay, so the hail, chapter 9. Oh, let's see,
18.
25. So there was, or even, is it earlier than that too?
18.
Oh, yeah. It says it in 18, also in 20 down in 25.
It starts in 18.
Yeah, that's where it starts. I'm looking for where it actually says. Let's see, the hail struck all those in the field throughout the land of Egypt, both man and beast. The hail struck every plant in the field and shattered every tree. Only in the land of Goshen, where the sons of Israel were, there was no hail. So, apart from the land of Goshen there, everything was pummeled by hail, but not in Goshen. And then probably my favorite one, I don't know about you, but I really like the next one. What's the next one? Nope, there's one before that.
Darkness.
The darkness is really interesting. Let's read that one. I know I said I didn't want to get into these two, but there are some of these details that are really fascinating. Chapter 10 and 22, I think is where it says, this is the one where Moses does it. He stretches his hand, well, God does it, but Moses stretches his hand to the sky, There was thick darkness in all the land of Egypt for 3 days. They did not see one another. Have you ever been to like Mammoth Cave or some of those other places where you get down under the ground and cave, and then they do the light thing where they, you live there is no light. It is incredible feeling, right? You get the, just, I don't know. For me, it gets me just kind of anxious. But for 3 days, they didn't see anyone. But all the sons of Israel had light in their dwellings, it says. So and again, this one to me is very interesting, fascinating. I don't think it's that, God just stopped this. He stopped the sun, or however he did it, right? But I take it quite literal. They couldn't even light a lamp, or they couldn't even light their fires, or whatever it was, right? That's how that didn't work. Whatever they were trying to do to make light, I'm sure that was the first thing they tried to do, right? And that didn't work. That's why this one to me is the most intriguing, I think. There's no light. But the sons of Israel had light. And especially if you were an Egyptian, and if they were somewhat at all close by, right? That would have been quite something to witness and notice, that there's no light by us, but they can have. Yeah, I don't know. My brain's too small to really figure out how that all worked. I don't know about you, if you can try to imagine it all. But that one to me is quite neat. And then the last one, isn't the last one the death of the firstborn? Or were the locusts separate too?
The final one, they were exempt.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, final one, if they followed his command, right? We'll get to that. But I think that was the last one where they were not, or directly states that they were unaffected. Yeah. All right. So, after each plague, right? Typically, after each plague, Pharaoh, it says, hardens his heart, right? So chapter 7, if you want to look there, the first one, yet Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he did not listen to them, as the Lord had said. That one's important, right? God said that he would do this, and he hardened his heart, and he didn't listen. Okay, verse 22, Pharaoh turned and went to his house with no concern even for this. So no concern even for this after the water turned to blood. So what does that translate to you? No concern even for this. What does that mean?
He wasn't allowed to go.
Hardness, yeah. I take it as the same thing almost, right? Hardness, hard. Nope, whatever. Okay, the water's blood. I'm not letting him go, right? That's chapter 7. Chapter 8, verse 15. This is the one with the frogs. However, this one's unique. With the frogs, after the frogs, Moses cries out to the Lord concerning the frogs that he inflicted upon Pharaoh, right? And the Lord did according to the word of Moses, which is a great example of petitioning God. But he says they piled them in heaps and the land became foul. When Pharaoh Pharaoh sees there's relief in this one. Oh, okay. All right. That worked. I complained to Moses. Moses took care of it. There's some relief. But then it says, he hardened his heart and he did not listen to them, as the Lord had said. So that one, he even felt some relief, or he felt that there was some give and take there, but yet he hardens his heart, right? Chapter 8 and verse, I think it's 19 right away, the flies. This one's interesting too. The magicians, what did they say to Pharaoh?
This is the finger of God.
This is the finger of God. So the magicians, you remember all the magicians trying to, well, not trying to, they did, replicate in some fashion these miraculous events. Notice how I said some fashion. I don't think it was, on the same playing field as God, of course. But in this case, they said, this is the finger of God. But even though they said that, right, what does Pharaoh say? Or what does it say about Pharaoh, right? His heart was hardened. He did not listen to them, as the Lord had said. So we see it changing a little bit, right? The frogs, he gets a little relief there, sees that, okay, God, Moses petitions God, okay, and this goes away. Now, even his own magicians here are saying, hey, we can't do anything about this one. This is definitely God's work. And Pharaoh hardens his heart. Let's keep going. I think there's another, let's see. Chapter 9, what does it say there? 12. The magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boil, so it's building now, right? Now his magicians can't even perform before him or stand before him, right? Because of the boils. And they're on the magicians as well as all the other Egyptians. And the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart. And he did not listen to them, just as the Lord had spoken to them. And that, we'll talk about that. That language changed there, if you notice that. We'll talk about that too. Go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah. Back to the letting them go for 3 days in chapter 8. You remember he said, this is after the flies, he said, I will let you go that you may sacrifice.
Oh, yeah.
But don't go very far.
Yeah, don't go very far.
You can't go very far.
yeah.
But then he reneged on that, and of course in the last verse of the chapter said, nope.
No, I'm not going to actually let you.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's a good observation. Yeah, thank you. All right, so chapter 10. Oh, I thought that was air conditioning kicking on. That's the rain. It's kind of like God's air conditioning, I guess. The plague of the locusts. We see Lord saying to Moses, "Here, go to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the heart of his servants, so that I may perform these signs among you." So we actually see God saying it there, that I've hardened his heart, and how it's directly stated. But also in 10 and 20, the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he did not let the sons of Israel go. That's after the locusts. And that's even after the Lord shifted the winds. This is another occurrence where Pharaoh calls for Moses and Aaron, right? Now Pharaoh even says, this is a pretty, maybe dramatic moment, although it's maybe just lies. But Pharaoh says, I have sinned against, did you see it? I have sinned against the Lord your God, which is unique to me, I guess. Maybe you see it, but I have sinned against, he doesn't say like just your God. He says, I've sinned against the Lord your God, which is quite interesting, right? Language. And I've sinned against you. Now, therefore, please forgive my sin, right? They make supplication, but the Lord shifts the wind, drives the locusts out, and then it says, but the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart. We'll talk about these in a second here. Got the language change. And then 27 of the same chapter, after the livestock, right? The Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he was not willing to let him go. Okay, so every time, right, we see the Lord, Pharaoh, well, we'll talk about that. We see Pharaoh's heart is hardened. We'll talk here in a minute about, now, was it Pharaoh hardening his heart? Or was it God hardening his heart? Or was it both? We can talk about that yet as well. All right, so that's what happens each time. And his heart becomes harder every plague. How about Aaron? Did Aaron have any, during these plagues, we kind of focus on, at least I always did, growing up reading it, was Moses, right? Did Aaron have any efforts or engagement in these chapters? What did you find?
I didn't realize that Aaron was doing the stuff with the rod.
Yeah.
I always thought it was Moses.
That's why I asked this question. That's why I pointed the question out. Because I think when it's taught a lot or when we think about it a lot, we just think about Moses and Pharaoh, right? But remember, Aaron was given that job as being as he was said, like a prophet. Right? And we know of other prophets in the Old Testament, what the actions and activities they were involved in and how they performed various miraculous things. And we're a mouthpiece. Now we see Aaron doing this well. So 7, I think, is the first one. Is it 19? Take your staff out. The Lord said to Moses, say to Aaron, take your staff out and stretch your hand. So really it was Aaron was the one that performed, well, again, God, but Aaron was the one that performed the miracle with the rod and the Nile, right? And the blood and the water.
The first 3 that he performed, didn't he?
What's that?
Didn't he do the frogs analyze the first 3?
I think it's, yeah, so I have, let's see, look at my notes here. Chapter 8 would be the frogs. Let's see, is it 5 and 6? Yep, so 6. 5, he says you stretch out your hand and your staff. So 5, he was involved in the frogs as well. And then, the flies, I think you're right. So it's those three, 16, 17. Say to Aaron, stretch out your staff, strike the dust of the earth, and they become gnats. And so Aaron is the one that actually uses his staff as that instrument there to enact the plague or punishment, if you will.
Did you say the water into blood? I didn't hear that.
Yeah, the water turning into blood in chapter 7. Aaron, let's see, this is the Lord, I'll strike the Nile. Where did we read that again? Chapter 19. The Lord said to Moses, say to Aaron, take your staff and stretch out your hand over the waters of Egypt, over the rivers, over the streams and pools, and all the reservoirs. And so I take that as Aaron. Moses saying to Aaron, do it, and Aaron does it.
Aaron was the one whose staff turned to the serpent too.
Yes. Oh yeah. So really, if we could count
That's the first
4.
one.
That's the first one. Yeah, I don't know why I skipped that one, but yeah, you're right. I guess.
It specifically says Moses to tell Aaron.
Yes. I think in all of them that Moses says to Aaron, correct? Or it said to Moses and Moses says to Aaron. I think it's all.
At the end of chapter 11, it says Moses and Aaron performed these wonders.
Yeah. So I guess the reason why I asked that question, I wanted to just talk about it. When I was studying it again, it's interesting. We tend to just equate, again, Moses and Pharaoh, right? And that's the stories that we know, and that's all we think about. But Aaron had a very pivotal role and an important role, and we know that. We know he was going to be. We're told that in the scriptures, and then we see that he does. So, which is neat. We talked about the magicians a little bit. Overall, what do you know about the Pharaoh's Egyptians? Pharaoh's magicians. What do you know about them and their responses? And what do you make anything of that? Do you find that intriguing, or were they really able to do the miracles? What do you think? How did they respond?
Well, you asked about what they had said.
Yeah.
They said it was the finger of God, but it says about their arts.
Yep.
Chapter 7.
Secret
verse
arts in 22, I think. Yeah. Verse 11 as well. Yeah.
So they were skilled at illusions and various
Somehow, yeah,
magic.
they were pretty clever at their secret arts, is how it's worded, which is neat.
But when it came to the plague of the boils, they sort of got put down.
That's
Said the magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils.
yeah.
They were on the magicians as well as all the Egyptians.
I like the story of the magicians. I like seeing that there. I think it happened. Obviously, it happened, and it's written for us to see that they tried. It's almost like they tried keeping up with God, right? And then, as Bruce said, at some point, it was too much. They're miserable with these boils, and they're trying to. They couldn't even stand before Pharaoh at this point to try to replicate anything, right? And then, of course, I think we read already the flies. This is the finger of God. This is beyond magic or trickery, right? We can't. There's no way we could try to do something like this. Early on, actually, with Aaron's rod becoming the serpent, early on, what happened there? So he throws it down. The magicians, they do the same thing, and then what happens? Aaron's serpent swallows up their serpents, right? So even that very first occurrence with the magicians, God says nope, and causes Aaron's serpent to swallow up theirs, right? Which is really, really neat. But Pharaoh keeps trying it, right? Oh no, we can do the same thing, right? He keeps trying it. You had to have been there and wondered. He watched it happen, right? And thought, I'm sure he wasn't thinking, oh, it's just currents. He happened to eat the other snakes. It's pretty neat.
I kind of connect these up with what I said earlier about the idea that I'll make you as God before Pharaoh.
Yeah.
Because Pharaoh probably believed that those magicians were actually acting on the
True,
by
maybe
a god.
by a god. Yeah.
I thought
that's a good
about
point.
Simon.
Yeah. Simon the
They
sorcerer.
certainly, in the New Testament, and I thought, well, how many thousands of years has passed? And still they're saying, this man is what is called the great power of God. They were giving him attention because he had for a long time astonished them with his magic arts. So they attributed it, still in the first century, they attributed these magic arts to some greater power.
Yeah. Well, and you said how long, it can't be that long. It doesn't take that long, right? So who are the Egyptians? Where did they come from? Don't overthink it.
I don't know.
No?
To clarify, what I meant was for that length of time, people were still believing that those who were acting magic or had some,
No, I know. I'm not. You just made me think of what you just made me think of is time passing, and now it made me think of something I was looking up earlier today. Who are the Egyptians? How much time has passed, right? So where did they come from? Did God create the Egyptians as separate people? No. So we have in Genesis what happened after the earth became so foul and corrupt?
flood.
The flood. And who came out of the flood? Okay, so it's believed that Egypt stems from Ham, if I'm not mistaken, and his son, it's Mizraim or Mizraim, and even the root word for his name and the root word for the current name of Egypt, which is Mizar, M-I-Z-R, have the same root word. And so a lot of historians and people believe that that's the child that Egypt came from, was Ham. Ham's son, Mizraim. Anyhow, what I'm getting at, it came from one of them, right? We could debate on which one it was, but this nation came from that group of people, right? So what Mike just made me think of was that much time has passed where they're already Egyptians, the Pharaoh, right? They're already into these different gods that they believe in, right? They're not respecting God at all, and they came from one of the people that got off the boat. Am I making sense of that? Yeah. So that many years has gone by where God has been forgotten, and there's other places in the Old Testament where we see that, where the law was discovered in the temple again, right? Can you even imagine that they forgot the entirety of the law? And the law was discovered again, right? And it was read, right? It just, that time passes and God is forgotten about. Okay? Okay, any thoughts or questions before we keep going? Go ahead, Mike.
I don't know if you're going to get into this or not much, and I don't know if it's necessary, but...
But you'll do it anyways.
What's that?
But you'll do it anyways? No, go ahead.
No. So we've talked about these being magicians acting as if it's the power of God.
Yeah.
But there's good evidence, I think, that these different plagues directly affected their Egyptian gods in terms of the power that the Egyptian got over each one of these different insects.
Shows the power and
like
completeness,
darkness.
yes.
They had gods assigned to each of those. The
Sure.
weather, the animals,
Yeah.
insects.
Which is very common in a lot of cultures.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so there's, it's interesting to look at the archaeological findings that associate these different things with the different gods of the Egyptians.
Right, right.
Yeah, so this is, Joe printed out a sheet that has the different gods.
Oh, the God, yeah. No, it's not something I looked into recently, but
Yeah.
I've definitely thought of it. And go ahead if you want to, if there's anything you want to read off there. But
Happy, H-A-P-I, turn the water into blood. That's the god of the Nile. Haquit, the frog-headed goddess of fertility and childbirth, Geb, the god of the earth, dust, so the lice and the gnats. One is called Shur or Uchit, the scabs and creation of God associated with and creation God associated with insects. Aether, the cow goddess of love, protection, and fertility. Isis, the goddess of magic, healing, and medicine. Seth or Nut, the sky goddess, and Seth as the storm or chaos god. The locust, the god of storms, disorder. Osiris is also linked to agriculture. Ra, the supreme sun god, and then Pharaoh, the Osiris. So Pharaoh himself was actually thought to be a god.
Yes.
He was considered to be divine.
Yeah.
So those are all, that's verifiable, and there's good evidence that it is. Then these are in direct opposition to those gods of the Egyptians, and of course that all makes sense if God is showing himself to be the true God as opposed to the Egyptian gods.
Oh, good. Oh, that's great. Thanks
Sorry
for
about the name pronunciation, but
no, that's good. I was familiar with a few of them, but definitely not all of them. Well, it leads into my next where I kind of wanted to go. So the first interpretation question I asked was, why did God do all these plagues? And I was looking at it really just from the scripture, but that ties into that. So what did you, well, you can use the scriptures, but you can answer how you answered it. Why did God send multiple plagues instead of just pulling them out of there? Right? Does that bother you, or does that make you wonder?
To prove that he had power over all these so-called gods.
Yeah, I agree. The first, Bruce already mentioned it really early on in chapter 7, right away, in verse, I think it's 5, God said, the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord. I am the Lord when I stretch out my hand on Egypt and I bring the sons of Israel out from their midst. So he starts that way, right? He says that. But it keeps going, right? Okay. Anybody else, any other thoughts or comments on why so many plagues?
I thought that also because God is also setting up, like, how stories are passed down generation to generation for the surrounding nations. Also, this is going to be told for the surrounding nations that are also seeing and witnessing, and people are talking to them, and it's setting up to, hey, you go against Israel.
This is what's going to happen. Well,
this is the
things like this would not go unnoticed, right?
Exactly.
You would not, plagues like this would not happen. And imagine, okay, we went through COVID, unfortunately. Do you still talk about it? Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, right? We can't get out. It was a very memorable event, unfortunately, right? And that was nothing like anything like this. Okay, so imagine how long. Yeah, the publicity or the notoriety, and actually, I didn't want to jump there quite yet, but Exodus chapter 10. What did God even say? I've done these things that I may perform these signs among them, that you may tell to the hearing of your sons, right, and your grandsons. God even says there, I want people to talk about this. I want people to know who I am, and this is how in our modern language, people would say, this is how I roll. Chapter 9, though, before I wanted to get to that, 14, this goes along with what Joe and Mike were bringing up with the gods, so that you may know that there is no one like me in all the earth, is what he says. So that's that oneness there. He wants them to know that you're not going to find, you can search to your sun god or the happy god, whoever that was, right? You can look to those people, but now he says, no, there's only one God. No God, you're not going to find anybody else like me in chapter 9. And then verse 16, for this reason I've allowed you to remain in order to show you my power in order to proclaim my name through all the earth. So again, showing his power, showing his name through all the earth. He wants it to be known. Go ahead, Mike.
I think there's a parallel to what Jesus did when he worked miracles, in that he did miracles in all of these same realms.
Yeah,
You
true.
know, he calms the sea.
True. Yeah.
He
Food,
multiplies
yep.
the loaves and the fish, heals the blind. So in all of the different areas of
Death.
and even casts
Yeah.
out demons. So that shows the power. Any idea that there's power in men or in so-called gods, that demonstrates that here's where the real power is.
Well, in Jesus in particular, we studied it in that, I think it was a Wednesday night class, but the physical realm and the spiritual realm, both realms he dominated and showed that in his miracles, yeah. The last part, I want to look in chapter 12, look at verse 12. This goes with what Joe and Mike were saying too. So it's a little outside of the chapters I gave you, but in 12:12, for I will go through the land of Egypt on the night, and I will strike down all the firstborn. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Against all the gods of Egypt, I will execute my judgments. Maybe I've got the wrong passage.
And against all the gods, it says.
Or am I in the right? Oh, I just jumped. I read it wrong. I didn't keep going. For both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt, I will execute judgments. I am the Lord. So he points out there the power that he has over life, right? I'm going to strike down the firstborn. I'm going to execute that judgment. But then he includes man, beast, and I'm going to show that this is against all the gods of Egypt. This is, I guess in 12, this one's really pointing out, I don't know if you want to say like a totality or a complete, he's saying there, maybe they could try to do anything I could do up to this point, right? But he's almost like he's saying, let's see one of the gods of Egypt strike down all the firstborn. Almost, that's how I'm reading it. I don't know if I'm reading that right.
I should mention it that if someone wants to do a deep study, just this verse will help you to remember the title, but David Padfield in Zion did a study of this, and it's called Against the Gods of Egypt.
Oh.
So if you look on his website,
Yeah.
You'll find a 52-page study of these gods of Egypt. So
yeah, that's neat. Oh, okay. We're out of time. As per usual. So we'll keep going with some interpretation questions and application questions next week, and then we'll get into 12 and 13. But yeah, come back, read more, study it more. Let's see what else we can. There's more themes I want to get to. I want to get to really talking about, was it Pharaoh that hardened his heart? Was it God that hardened? How does that blend together? We'll talk about that. And then obviously we have some, as we get into chapter 12 to 11 and 12, we have some Christ connections that we need to make here as well. So, all right, past time.